In this video, we're going to take a look at condensation polymers. So condensation means the removal of water, okay? And so what happens then is we get the formation of a polymer accompanied by the elimination of a water molecule. In order for this to happen, the two reacting monomers have to have two reactive functional groups each, one at each end of the molecule. Okay, so for example, here in our example, we've got a amine at one end and a carboxylic acid at the other. We've got an amine and a carboxylic acid. Now, when this particular reaction happens, these are actually amino acids, right? So amino acids are the building blocks of proteins, and in order to form a polypeptide, we create a linkage between a carboxylic acid on one monomer and an amine group on another monomer. And so what we're creating here is what we call an amide linkage. And so this is a pretty popular kind of linkage that happens. So we're reacting an amine with a carboxylic acid, and we are creating an amide linkage for our polymer. In this case, we're creating a polypeptide, so we're just showing a biological example here. And then we're creating a molecule of water each time we do this reaction to grow this particular polymer chain. So polyamides then in general, polypeptides was one example of a polyamide, but there's lots of examples out there. And like I said previously, they're produced through a condensation reaction between an amine and a carboxylic acid. Now, the reaction I'm showing you here on this screen is essentially creating what we call nylon 6,6. And it's called nylon 6,6 because we're taking a reaction between hexane dioic acid. So we've got two carboxylic acids here. It's a 6-carbon chain, so it's a hexane dioic acid. And then we have a hexane 1,6-diamine. So this has amines at each end. So it looks a little bit different than our polypeptide. Instead of having an amine and a carboxylic acid on one molecule, we have both amines on one and carboxylic acids on both on the other molecule. But when we do this reaction, we create these amide linkages here. Okay, so you can see each one here. We can highlight them and circle them. And for each one that we're doing here, we're removing a molecule of water. So the repeating unit in this particular polymer here is shown in green. So this would be our repeating unit here. You just want to look for where it starts and then where it starts repeating again in order to figure out where that happens. Now, polyesters are another type of condensation polymer. So polyesters are produced through a condensation reaction that happens between an alcohol and a carboxylic acid. So in just sort of a generalized term, if we have molecules that have carboxylic acids on each end and we react it with a molecule that has alcohols on each end, so we have a dicarboxylic acid and a diol or a dialcohol, then we create ester linkages. And so this is why it's called polyesters. And we also generate molecules of water in the reaction itself, and that's why it's called a condensation polymer. So this is a generalized reaction, but there are lots of polyesters, both synthetic and natural, out there that do this particular kind of polymerization. Now I wanted to end off and just talk about biological macromolecules. So this has kind of come up when we looked at polypeptides, but I think it's really important to point out that all biological macromolecules are formed by condensation reactions, and they can be broken down by hydrolysis. So essentially, hydrolysis is the reverse of condensation. So looking at our example here, we have sugar molecules. And so sugars are known as monosaccharides when they are by themselves. And they have lots of these OH groups on the particular rings of the different sugars that we have. We don't need to know structures for this. This is just kind of the generalized reactions that are happening. Now, we have alcohols everywhere, so we can create polymerization by condensation. So removing water, we create this bond that we call, because it's a sugar, it's called a glycosidic bond. And by doing that, we're also generating a molecule of water. And so if we just join two together, that's a disaccharide. But if we join more together, then this is known as a polysaccharide. And then we can break down those polysaccharides by reacting it with water and going backwards. So we can go from a polysaccharide back to a disaccharide, back to monosaccharides as well. So great example, but like this also happens with proteins, polypeptides, down to amino acids with hydrolysis. And so I think it's an important concept just to know that biological macromolecules do form condensation polymers and can be broken down. So those are our condensation polymers. That's it for this video. We'll see you in the next one.